What is going on, everyone? I am back and I'm here to discuss a topic at the forefront for a lot of fantasy owners, and that is what to do with David Johnson. So let's recap. You were lucky enough to get the first overall pick, and you land a guy that everyone thought would be the best player in all of fantasy in David Johnson. And then fast forward to week one, he gets hurt, dislocates his wrist, out for 2 to 3 months. And what do you do now? You have a big hole on your roster. Obviously, your first overall pick is unavailable. So you have, in my opinion, two valid options. But first, let's explore the timeline for David Johnson. So, as I mentioned, the prognosis is 2 to 3 months, and I've seen anywhere from an expected return date around Thanksgiving to somewhere at the latest around Christmas time. So I think realistically, in my opinion, it'll be somewhere towards early December. So if you take that into account, you would have theoretically David Johnson for at least a playoff push, a late playoff push, um, assuming that you have made the playoffs. That's a big if. Um, but with that being said, I think he does have the potential to come back a little bit earlier. He hasn't had really any serious injuries before, especially in that area. So I'm hoping he can heal quickly. And I would personally bet on him returning sooner rather than later. But with that being said, what are your two options? Well, before I get into those, I will give this one piece of advice. Whatever you do, do not drop David Johnson. Do not just drop him and let go of him, release him, and let him hit the waiver wire because that is the worst thing you can do. Um, you can at least get some value for him. It is a bit of an unknown right now. Obviously, he will need surgery, but no one can really tell you how early or how late he will come back. So, looking at your two options. Option one, if you are in a 10-man league or have a team that's very deep at running back, I would suggest that you keep David Johnson on your bench. And if it looks like you have a roster that is a viable playoff team, then I would say go ahead, stash David Johnson, and keep the hope alive that he comes back a little bit sooner and then you can reinsert him into your starting lineup. Now, option number two, I have seen some trades actually go down recently, more so before the news came out with the 2 to 3 month injury period of guys like Ty Montgomery for David Johnson. And I thought that that was an excellent trade and an excellent swing for David Johnson owners because they're actually getting something from a very big unknown, and that being David Johnson's return. Now, personally, I still think that you can get something in return, even though that 2 to 3 month period has come out. I think there's a lot of people that are just very high on David Johnson and are of the same mindset as me that would say, he's going to return at some point and I'll have him for at least 1 or 2 games and he will be a big difference maker in those games. And to me, I would say those several people would be willing to give up a lesser running back, maybe a Mike Gillislee, or maybe not quite a Ty Montgomery anymore, but maybe Bilal Powell or something like that. So keep a lookout for that. I would say definitely let your league know that you are interested in trading David Johnson and that you're willing to listen to some offers. At the same time, um, if you have uh, a need at some other position, you can also try and swing that. At this point, you'll be getting an average player back. I would be surprised if it's an above average guy. If it is, then I would urge you definitely go ahead and take that deal. Because, like I said, you are getting something back for a period of at least 8 weeks, which is more than the 0 points that David Johnson will provide you in that period. Um, and then that player that you get back will also be available for that playoff push. But now, what to do during that injury period in terms of waiver wire pickups? I'll also address this because a lot of people went kind of nuts with Kerwin Williams, Andre Ellington, or Chris Johnson. I actually thought that Chris Johnson signing was the most interesting, and that was because he has had success previously before with the Cardinals. He knows that system, and them bringing him back shows that they have some kind of faith in him and obviously a need for him. Now, the one concerning thing is they did keep Kerwin Williams over Chris Johnson, so that kind of shows a little bit of an edge for Kerwin. But even with that being said, I would bet my money that as the season goes, Chris Johnson becomes the favorite. Now, that's not to say that you should invest a lot in getting a guy like Chris Johnson if you didn't get him off waivers or something like that, because look, the bottom point, in my opinion, is this will be a running back by committee lineup. If anything, none of these players can do everything that David Johnson did because he was a threat on the goal line. He was a threat in terms of a breaking off a long run and as a stellar receiving running back. Kerwin Williams, he's mostly that bruising running back. Chris Johnson is that shifty guy with the speed. And then Andre Ellington does have that speed, but he's been used more as a receiver. So none of those guys give you everything that David Johnson did. Now, I would suggest you at least gamble on one of these guys just as a waiver pickup right now to see how it kind of plays out without David Johnson in these next few weeks. And maybe one of them really separates themselves and you've hit the gold mine. So go ahead, try and do that at least. But if anything, to me, um, I think this helps Larry Fitzgerald the most, actually, and that receiving group in Arizona because now the focus will go from the running game back to the passing game in Arizona. Fitz is a reliable guy, Palmer's favorite target, and I know defenses are probably going to try and shut him down, but there is still some threat with those individual guys in the with the running backs. So they will not be completely able to lock down the receivers opposing defenses. I'm high on Fitzgerald right now. If you can, try and pick him up if you don't already have him. Didn't have the best week one, so see what you can do. If the asking price is too high, then you know go ahead and uh, stay patient. But in the meantime, that is my opinion and my take on the David Johnson situation. Let me know, what do you think? Um, you know, do you agree with my analysis? Should you at all even consider a trade with David Johnson, or would you rather, as a David Johnson owner, just stash him on your bench and hope for the best? But in the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in future videos.